Hello, friends. Welcome to A Little Room for Healing, where we aim to create a little more room in the world for authentic connection, insightful healing, and a deeper understanding of our hearts, ourselves, and each other through honest conversation. My name is Joel. I'm a Reiki and 13th Octave Laho Chi practitioner, a facilitator for deep healing, and your host. Today I'm spending time with Nicole Derseweh. Nicole is a plant medicine practitioner, author, and healer. On this episode, she tells me about her initiation into energy healing, the ways in which religious trauma affected her, and how she found her way back to spirituality after leaving the church. She talks about her bout with severe depression and what pulled her out of it. We also talk about receiving the call and showing up for it. As usual, we start with check-ins so we can be more tuned with each other. Come on in. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Joel. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad we both wore purple today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is purple?
Well,
amazing.
Yeah, it's a plum. Yeah.
I'm glad too.
Yeah. Good. We got the memo.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the show with me.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
This is amazing. I have traveled to LA, and this is my first podcast recording in LA. I'm doing a few out here, I think 6. And Nicole is my first guest, and I'm so excited to have Nicole on here. We don't know each other well, but it feels good to be in your presence.
Yeah, very familiar.
Yeah, so that's wonderful.
Yeah. Solid start. Yeah.
So let's do check-ins to see how we are in this moment, and I'll go first, and then I'll pass it over to you. Okay. I'm feeling pretty good right now. I feel really light inside. I traveled here. I got here late Monday night, and I'm feeling surprisingly awake and near acclimated to the time zone out here. And we met like 6 months ago, and I'll talk more about that, I think, a little bit, but I've been curious about so much. I've been wanting to get to know you more since then. So I'm so thrilled to have this opportunity. So that's in me, that excitement and wonderful it's like a relaxed excitement of having the opportunity to actually sit with you and talk with you. So that's where I am right now.
Beautiful. Oh, good. Yeah, how am I? I feel open. I feel a little buzzy. I feel excited. I'm having some body symptoms, but I feel unbothered. That's what my cycle started a couple days ago. So I'm so boldly throwing caution to the wind and just wearing white pants because I'm a rebel. But I always do that. I'm like, why? But it's how I live on the edge, you know? But yeah, so my back's a little crampy, it's a little achy, but I'm not so bothered by it. I'm not so bothered by it, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this podcast and seeing what's just gonna unfold, and enjoying your presence.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
What? Oh my God. It is. There's this thing when someone just says that to you, it does there's one little piece of energy that just goes, and you're one less thing to
worry about.
Hold or worry about.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so wonderful to hear. I can relax, and it's even though it would be nice to go through the world without needing permission to be yourself.
Yeah.
It is nice when someone actually vocalizes that kind of thing, and then you're like, okay, it really is okay to be myself.
Yeah, totally. Very easeful. That's good.
So, I have a lot of things that I'm curious about regarding you. and I think I want to preface it by our interaction at the last, when I met you, and it was, we were in a ceremony, and I was, you were one of the lead facilitators, right? Mm-hmm. And I was a guardian there, and the first night I had a little more medicine than I needed to do my job.
Yeah, fair. That can happen.
This was the second night that we actually had this interaction. The second night, a little less, but it's still a little more. And I had this thing in my, this part of me was really working on me that weekend, and it was this part of me that felt worthless, and I didn't realize what was happening at the time, but there was this really thick energy in my stomach, and I sought you out because you do energy work.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what kind of energy work do. I don't know how, what it was. Yeah. I was just like, energy work, Nicole. So and you graciously went through a process with me, and it was I never experienced energy work like that. So that was really cool. You had my head in your lap, and you were doing like Icaros. Was that what you were doing? Mm-hmm. And humming and singing into parts of my body, and things were moving and bubbling up, and it was so wonderful. And I was like, I didn't quite get to purge like I wanted to, but I was like, I did get some nice dry heaves out. Yeah. So we moved some energy, and then I was able to see what was going on. But anyway, I've been so curious about it since then. Yeah. And you don't have to say exactly at this moment what the energy work was. If you want to build up to how you got there, I'm totally cool with that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, I remember that. I remember working on you, and I do energy work. I do it in the context of ceremony, but I also do private energy sessions with clients, with no psychedelics, and that has been really empowering to be able to draw people into a psychedelic state with just the power of presence and energy, and that's kind of like my magic sauce, I guess. But long story about, so I don't have a name for it, and you and I were talking a little bit off camera, but it's something that I channeled, and if we really go way back, I think I practiced for lifetimes, really, but my grandma this lifetime was a healer. And she grew up in Savannah, Georgia, in the South, and not too much time away from her lifetime and the Salem witch trials and all that stuff. So she was always very low key about her power and her magic. So a lot of what I learned from her, I gleaned from observing, from her showing me, and from experiencing the healing power of her hands. And she always taught me about energetic presence, even at a young age. Even in the kitchen, she'd always be barefoot, and she'd always hand toss everything, and I remember I never questioned that when I was little, but when you're like a snotty teenager and everything's questioning you, you're like, why are you touching the food with your hand, She's like, honey, I have to touch the food, that's how I get the love in it. And she really infused everything she touched with that healing energy, and her food would heal people. It was very different kind of food, so she could infuse something that you might eat, but she also could touch your body in a way that would just melt. I mean, when I was super little, I never wanted her to touch my face, because if I was like that kid that wouldn't go to sleep, I mean, she could just stroke your face for 3 seconds, and you'd be like, ow, wow. Done. Yeah. So we'd run from her when we were little, because we were like, we're staying up, yeah, totally. Amazing. And I knew I had this energy too in my hands. I would feel it. When I was little, I call it sparkly fingers. I would just kind of feel this the electrical pulse in my hands, and I would play with healing my animals when they were unwell, my little hamster, and do these things. And I was the nerdy kid, and I was teased, so I didn't really talk to people about it because I was already bullied for so much growing up. But when we got to high school, I was in choir. Another thing that I got bullied for. But people would fight over who got to sit in front of me during choir, because I would naturally just lay hands on whoever was in front of me and start working on them. So then, I don't know, people just said my energy felt really well, and that led me to going to massage therapy school. And I don't know, I had this special quality as a massage therapist that was a little bit unspoken, and sometimes I'd be kind of like really drained and tired after a massage session with somebody, because I didn't really understand energetic boundaries at that time. And like, to be honest, I was kind of running from this gift that I knew I had. I had seen a lot of healers that were like really sick and overweight, taking on like a lot of health issues, like almost as if, to me, my perception was that they were pulling energy out of clients and it was getting stuck in their body. And so I was kind of scared of it. And there was this period of time where, right before my gifts open, where I was starting to do plant medicine, and I was becoming more open and even more sensitized to this gift. And I was really outrunning it. Energy would find me, and it would almost be like a puppy knocking at the door, and like for help. For example, I'd go to the Korean spa and I'd be in the hot water. This gift is kind of magnified with elements. I could consider myself an elemental, and I do elemental work. So in water, it's hypersensitive. And so a woman would enter the water with me, and I'd almost feel nauseous. I'd have to get out of the water. I was running from that energy, that was calling me and like pulling me. So cut to this ayahuasca ceremony at the top of the pandemic. Our community kind of met in secret, just for the space holders. We knew that we were going to be in this kind of pandemic era, and it was going to be tough, and a lot of people were going to need support. So we did a secret ayahuasca ceremony, just the team, to kind of fortify ourselves for the journey ahead, so we could be of service. And you know, I think I very clearly asked ayahuasca that night as my intention, help me open to my gifts. And that's exactly what happened. And so this was like a direct channeling from the medicine, but I dropped in. Yeah. I dropped in with Aya, and she came to me. She always talks to me. I know she talks to people in different ways, but for me, she's kind of like that big sister, like kind of coach, or like super smart mom, but like she's real down to earth with me. And she's just kind of like, hey girl, so you ready to learn how to use your gifts? So you could stop running from them? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And she's like, okay, well, you know, you are an energetic channel. You channel for the collective, and you also channel for individuals. And you don't need to be afraid of your gift the way you've been afraid, because you're built differently. She's like, not all healers can work in the same way, but you're built in a way where you actually are kind of like a Brita filter for the human soul. So you can take in their energy, and like a Brita filter, you can filter it, and then you can push it back out. And that's how you can heal energy. And she's like, I'm going to show you how to do it tonight. We're going to use it. Tonight we're going to clear for the collective, and we're going to do a really heavy topic, so that way when I'm not with you, you won't be scared. And I was like, okay, Aya, what is the topic? And she was like, oh, you know, just universal sexual trauma. It's like, no big deal. And I was like, okay. And then she said, go. And as soon as she said go, there was this like flashing scenes of all sexual trauma throughout history, like in the past, like women being stoned, and like underground sex trafficking and rapes and child abuse, and like the abuse cycle and what causes it, and like the pain, and like how it can get really dark, and women being murdered, and like it was just all happening, and I was simultaneously feeling the pain of all of it, and my body was shaking. It must look like a exorcism needed to happen, because like 4 guardians were like on me at the same time, and it was all out. My hands shot up. Yeah, it was nuts. I know, I'm blowing through this because it was so intense.
It's amazing.
Yeah, my arms shot up in the middle of it. My hands started doing these Reiki-like, I mean, it's the only thing I could liken it to at the time. These symbols, it was just going, and it kept going. And then finally, this break happened. My voice opened up. And like, I know I had mentioned I'd been on choir like earlier, but not because of my singing abilities, okay? I was a good speaker. They kept me away from, I had a vocal trauma when I was younger. But all of a sudden, my voice opened up, and these angelic tones started coming out. And my hands were floating up, and they were finishing doing their thing. And that angelic singing took me until like daybreak. And then in the morning, I knew something huge had opened, and I was like wrapped in a blanket, and I just started walking around this neighborhood like smelling flowers, and I just felt profoundly different. And thank God it was a pandemic, because I didn't have energetic boundaries. So I spent the next 6 months transmuting energy for the collective. Like collective energy would come, and I would just be on my back alone in my apartment, transmuting, going through this whole thing, until I learned how to create boundaries around energetic release. Like energy can come to me because it knows that I'm open for business, basically, and I can help it. But I can also say, not right now, check back later, sorry, I can't, find somebody else, or yes, you know? And then pretty soon I was able to channel like what a session would look like and how to work with individuals. And in my individual practice, it's very similar to what I did for the collective. It's just kind of like making an energetic connection with whoever I'm helping, taking some of their energy into my body as a way of creating like a 3D map of where they're holding. And there's still like energetic boundaries around anonymity. Like I can see where you're holding your trauma, but I'm not like a psychic where I see every single thing that happened to you. And I'm kind of glad, because it allows the client to have a level of privacy. But I can see where you're holding and how it is, and then we can use different techniques to kind of move it through your body. And like you were mentioning at the top, like a lot, I will channel chants, like different vocal frequencies, kind of using my own body as a sound bowl or like a healing tool to tune you. And I do some sounding too sometimes, where like I will kind of practice until I find the right tone that's resonating with your body. Some of it can be very somatic, like moving and pressing on different body parts and applying pressure, and specifically compression while doing these vocal tones and moving the energy. And so the whole thing kind of evolved, and it's kind of its wild own thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When the experience was happening on with Aya, were you, I like to gauge, I don't know if you do this as well, but I like to gauge intensity level 1 to 10, and then 11 is like when you're at, like, you're like past what you like feel like you can actually hold. Do you remember like where you were?
Very close to 10, because I'm a really pretty independent journeyer, even when it gets super intense. But even though I had, I think I had 1 or 2 guardians already helping me, I specifically asked to bring Yvonne over, because I was like, this is like a radical breaking point. So I was up there in the 10 level. I needed a lot of support. To get through that one. That was like a major initiation.
So cool.
Also, that same night, I remember she had to explain to me why I was so afraid. And so Aya showed me a past life where I was this witch in this village, and I was a good witch, but people were really scared and they didn't understand. And at that time, I had my hand of sovereignty, which was my left hand. I'm left-handed in this lifetime too. This hand of sovereignty was creating protection for our village. And you know, these rumors got out that I was a witch and like whatever. So they burnt my hand. They didn't kill me completely, but they burnt my hand. And so like in the Aya vision, I looked down and this was just black ash, like this just like, and then the pain of that, and like another guardian had to come at a different point and pull life back into this hand. I was shedding the trauma of that to be able to open up these energetic centers more fully. Yeah, and that was amazing. But like that was also like a crazy part of that ceremony too, where I was like, oh, this witch trauma, like no wonder I've been hiding, you know, and keeping it low key. And my grandma kept it low key, you know? So the bummer of that is that I think we're a planet that needs a lot of healing, and there are a lot of healers that are either consciously or subconsciously afraid to come out and help. You know, still. Yeah.
Fun story.
What, right? Good times.
Yeah, loving it.
Way to spend a Saturday night.
It so is.
It really is. I know.
Oh I had a question there. What was it? Oh, how long had you been working with plant medicine before this break?
I think 4 years.
Pretty steadily in 4 years?
Pretty steadily, because I was a guardian right away.
Mm.
So we sit a lot for ourselves. Yeah, pretty steadily for 4 years, while doing other things as well. I got into Kundalini yoga, got into meditation practices, started spending more time in nature, stopped drinking alcohol, all those things that kind of like dumbed down the gifts. I started like leaving my life, you know? But a big part of this opening was owning it. Like, I think when you first come out and you're like, holy shit, I'm a healer, like, there's such an imposter syndrome that immediately rushes in. And it can kind of linger. Like, I'd have powerful session after powerful session with incredible reviews and like huge openings on the mat, and I'd still like question, like, am I a fake? Like what? Like, is this? What is this? Like, you know? So I think a big part of it fully opening was my willingness to like own my power, to step into it, and to just be like, it doesn't matter. The people that need it will find me, and we'll find each other, and I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna show up for that, because I'm in service of this gift. I'm in service of this gift.
Oh, that really hits me. That's like, that's kind of, I'm at that point right now where I'm still like, I know, felt, sense, and experiential know that I am a healer, but I'm still like, what you just described, like nervous about it, and like, wait, am I really healing? Am I a fraud? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
How do I fully own it and like let it even completely come through? And some of that for me is, a lot of it for the most of that for me is the fact that I grew up in a religious household, and this is to them evil,
right,
or sinful, or heretic.
Of course.
So I'm working through that right now. If you had
I hear you on that. Yeah, because I have a lot of religious trauma too. Oh my gosh. If this would have opened when I was in high school, they probably would have burnt me. Like, we went to a very religious, conservative Baptist Christian school. But it was so conservative that for me, it was, when I look back at like the definition of a cult, it was cult. It wasn't called a cult, like nobody would think. They say, oh, this is Baptist Christianity, but it was super heavy-handed indoctrination and oppression from a really young developmental age. And I mean, one of the biggest breakthroughs was for me to like break through that like really confined and tainted understanding of what is God into my more broader understanding now. Which at that time, when I was questioning those things, even to question that meant like hell and doom for eternity, right? So they indoctrinate you with the fear of even questioning. So like, I commend you, because that's such a big thing to ever break free from. Oftentimes those indoctrinations work for lifetimes and generations, and entire family lineages are enslaved by that. You know, so for us to be able to break free is like one in a mill. You know, it's a huge thing. As you were like, you were already feeling some energy in your hands, or energetic presence in your body of like being that when you were that age. Yeah. Were you, when it was happening, were you, because of religion, were you like, there's a part of me that was really pushing it down and being like, oh. For sure. It was definitely getting suppressed, because I didn't want, you know, also the religion, like, yeah, exactly. Sometimes I would play with the energy in my hands, would do it so privately and quietly in the back seat of the minivan, and like not talk to anybody about it ever. And you know what's really sad for me was when I was a kid, we had like a mandatory church on Wednesday in the middle of school, right? It was chapel. And we would sing praise hymns, and regardless of the religion being toxic, something happened to me when I would be in this kind of flow of just using my vocals and kind of closing my eyes, and even though the understanding was thwarted, but like connecting to this higher power, a couple times I got into this kind of very trance-like state where my hands felt very electric and open and very alive. It was a really powerful thing. And I wouldn't talk to anybody about that, but even if I did, they would probably be like, oh, she's connecting to spirit, like maybe that would have been okay because it happened in chapel. But when I broke away from my religion, I also had to do a hard stop on all of those practices because there was so much toxicity. So it took me a while to be able to heal and find my way back to spirituality. So I went through a dark period where I didn't have a connection to spirituality or a higher power or anything because it was so toxic. And those years were, when I look back, pretty sad, especially for somebody who's such a spiritual being. I'm such a spiritual being that it was like, oh my God, that I spent so much time kind of in the dark.
How long was that period?
Maybe almost a decade. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I had a final walk away, which I think was helpful because I think otherwise it's kind of hard to break away. But I had like kind of a last straw thing that happened. That religion, I went there kindergarten through 12th grade, and then I went to a university. We were groomed to go to that university. It was a Baptist university. It was right across the street. We were always in uniforms, and the kids from that university would come perform like Jesus songs for us, but they got to wear street clothes. And so like that, we were so sheltered, like that alone was so cool. We're talking to school where, they oh my God, they're wearing normal clothes. Like that was such a huge, we thought they were rock stars. I thought these were like celebrity singers that were coming, like, because we weren't allowed to listen to any music that was outside of our religion. There was no authors outside of our religion. We didn't have regular science. It was Christian Science. We weren't allowed to have friends outside of the church. So these kids were, as far as I was concerned, in street clothes. These were rock stars. And I wanted to go to the school that they were going to because they were so cool. So we did. And then I did 4 more years. But at the tail end of that college experience, I have found the first love of my life. His name was Seth, and he was from Seattle, and he was just like a breath of fresh air. I had never met anyone like him before. We had a really pure love that felt very unconditional and very healing for both of us because we were raised with so much religion. There was always conditions placed on love, and we were able to give that to each other in a really unconditional way. And we spent a year together, and at the end of that year, we got into a car accident coming home from my grandpa's birthday dinner, and we fell off the side of the freeway, and Seth was instantly in a coma, and he was in a coma for 17 years. Yeah, before he passed. He passed a few years ago. But yeah, it was really tragic, and it was right before going into my senior year at this university. And I remember when I came back to campus, my boyfriend was in a coma. I was waiting for him to wake up. The entire campus treated me like a scarlet letter. Like, they knew we were having sex outside of marriage, and so they thought that this was God's punishment. And some kids wouldn't talk to me, and people treated me different, or there was just so much kind of toxicity that was my final, like, this isn't God. This is when I was finally fed up. And I didn't leave my religion because I was upset at God that my boyfriend was in a coma. I left because the people were so ugly to me in a time of deep tragedy that I didn't want to be associated with the religion anymore. And that was like the final cut, and that led to about a decade of just not even being able to say the word God. Like it was really challenging for me. But eventually I found my way. I got comfortable with the word the universe, and that was like kind of the healing bridge word that like finally got me back into spirituality, but it took a while. It was the dark ages,
I can relate to that. Very much.
Yeah.
can I share a story with you?
I want to, yeah.
That happened in a journey of mine a year ago with Syrian Rue. When I had been pushing off looking at religious trauma. I had another trauma that I was like focused on, and I was like, fine, okay, I'll start looking at my religious stuff. And I went into this journey, and I said, I think one of my intentions was I wanted to remove the fear in my body that resulted from religion. And I wanted to find a connection with God. And two wild things happened, amazing things happened. The very first thing was that there was this presence that came to me, and I immediately knew that it was how God was showing himself to me. And these warm tears just started gently rolling down my face, and it was this amazing like sea creature blob that was just like inundating and going like this, right, like in my field of vision. My eyes were closed, and it was so beautiful. And I was like, okay, God, I get it, you're there. And then I started getting really scared, and he left, or it left, and I started getting really scared, and I started shaking, and I was like trembling really hard. It started to get super intense, and to the point it was like, I don't know, I think I might need someone to help me, because like I'm really, really in a terror mode right now. And this bright light opened up above me. Again, my eyes were closed, but this bright light opened up, and the fear in my bones started being pulled out into the white light. And I was like, there was a presence up there, and I'm like, who is doing this? And of course, what I realized who it was, I just started dying laughing hysterically, because it was Jesus. Jesus had come to pull this fear and trauma out of my bones of this. And I was like, and I was laughing. I was like, of course it would be you that would do this. Yeah. This person that I'm like, oh Jesus, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, okay. And I had this connection with him, and I felt into him. I was able to feel into him, and the most amazing message that I got from him was, I didn't even ask him. He was just like, I don't know why people made a religion out of me. Like, I never wanted that. That's not what I was saying. Wow. And it just a calm went over my heart. I was like, oh, thank you for saying that to me. Yeah. I hear you. But that was amazing.
That's powerful. Yeah. That's so powerful.
It was really amazing.
It's amazing these plant medicines can help us shed the kind of toxic indoctrination. I had a ceremony too that was like, it wasn't even my intention, actually. Like, you asked a very specific and great question. That was amazing of the medicine. That was very pointed. This just happened kind of organically, but I was in there and it was happening, and there was all this pain in my body. In this ayahuasca ceremony, I felt all this pain in my chest, and I was like, what is this? The medicine is like, this is indoctrination. This is power, like this is like the weight of like the religious indoctrination, and we have to remove it now. And I was like, okay, because it's such a challenging thing to remove. You have to like understand like so many of your thoughts and opinions that like were formed by this indoctrination that you just like you don't even realize, right? And I thought I was going to make like a subtle screaming sound, like not a disruptive one. So I was making some noises, but it was louder than I realized, because it came over and they were like, hey, we'd love to offer you to come into one of the rooms, which is what happens when you're too loud for the group, right? And I was like, oh, I'm that girl tonight. Okay. So it's fine. So they take me out, they put me in this other room, and like, thank God, because then it really opened up, and there was a lot of screaming that had to come out. But it just felt like, you said you had like those little like kind of bones or like kind of light being plucked out. Mine felt like it was like presenting as like this metal that got kind of thwarted and like wrapped around my heart and the soft tissue. And so it was all like, it had to like get very hot and like melt so they could pull it out. So it felt like I was burning. It was just like really painful. And I had two amazing goddesses like helping me. They were like my doulas for this like release of this indoctrination. And it was really powerful, and like also realized for the first time like how that also wrapped around my sexuality, like that primal like creative instinct got thwarted, you know, and all that programming around indoctrination around religious sexuality and like impurity and like all that other like nonsense, so that got removed too. It was a really powerful ceremony. Really powerful ceremony.
When you say goddesses were helping you, were you talking about beings like goddess beings, spirits that were, or were there guardians?
I think both.
That you were
we had two.
You were goddesses. Thank you for helping
Emily
me.
and Tina are definitely goddesses, and they were in the physical, fully present for this. So I'm giving them credit of the goddess. But yeah, I mean, and then they were calling in their own like spirit guides and healers to help assist. Oh, and Tina brought back this incredible oil. I think it was this like Egyptian ceremonial oil, and I remember like the energy, it was like pulling out through my wrist points, and she put a little bit of the oil and it helped pull it like more, like some plant essence, and so then they pulled it all the way down my arm, and then the scope of release became much bigger, so they had to put it here and here, and then from my throat like all the way down my center line. But that fragrance oil was like so powerful in the space. It was like helping me incredibly. You know? Yeah.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this. I love
such good work, right?
Yeah. Plant spirits. Beautiful. Yeah. Powerful. Yeah. Loving, and it's always something incredible that happens.
Yeah. It's always magic.
Even if it's a journey that doesn't have the intensity as the ones that we're talking about.
Right.
It's just something comes up, something is brought to you that you see, and like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's one of my things I'm constantly in awe of, is she's such a gentle, not gentle, she can be. She's such an intelligent healer, you know? And sometimes you do need gentleness, but sometimes there's intensity. But she's just such a wise, intuitive teacher and healer, and it's profound.
Okay. Oof.
Woo! How are we doing?
Good. Having fun.
Good.
Having fun. Would you like to receive a little energy healing?
I would love to. Yeah, I'd be honored.
Let's do that then now.
Okay, great.
And if you'd like to set an intention, you can obviously keep it to yourself if you want, but I would love to hear it as well.
Let me feel. Okay, so I'm calling in kind of grace, like a gracefulness with this extended expansion of capacity that I'm holding. I'm stretching and holding more in the healing space, and as that's expanding, I'm calling in like a graceful expansion to continue to be able to hold and carry it gracefully. So an ease in that. And then, yeah, I've got this right shoulder blade situation that manifests physically in a flare-up every once in a while. Never really got any clarity about what it is, but I'm open to that moving if there's space for it, and then just open in general, like whatever your special medicine like finds that needs to move or release. I'm open.
Great.
Yeah.
Then let's do it. We're gonna be right back after Nicole's 13th octave La Ho Chi session.
Wow.
And we are back from Nicole's 13th octave La Ho Chi session. How you doing? How was that?
Amazing.
Sweet.
Yeah, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, such a beautiful gift. Yeah, I was so peaceful. It was just very peaceful. I think I fell asleep. I might have snored a few times. I don't know if I was gentle snoring, tiny bear sounds.
A few here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then a couple like cool jolts, like as some energy was releasing. I remember my leg did a thing once, and I felt some jolting in my solar plex, some like releasing. And then it was wild at the end. You told me I could get up whenever I was ready. And I was like, that's interesting, because I felt that your palm was still like on top of me, like pressing me like into the mattress a little bit.
Wow.
It felt really warm. And I was like, why would he tell me again? Then I realized that your hand wasn't there, and I was like, oh, maybe like, you know, one of the healers that he's working with was just finishing something up. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah, I feel very peaceful now. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I do too.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. Woo.
That's awesome. That whoever that was is just like, I'm not quite done yet.
Yeah, you're just like a little gentle pressure, and I was like, oh, okay, hang tight. No rush.
Do you have any sense of your intentions and how they may have been met, if in any way?
I mean, for sure, like the peacefulness I feel now is like a really great state to move from when I'm asking for my capacity to be expanded, because I feel like from this state you can really handle a lot, you know, so that feels really clear, you know. And then I think, you know, at the end there with my intentions, I was like, oh, kind of dealer's choice, like whatever needs to move. I feel like that definitely happened, you know, like this thing with the leg, right. And like, so I was like, guess that just needed, you know, I didn't know what to ask for, and that moved. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, so you don't have any, as of right now, this moment, which is fresh, we're like less than 10 minutes
we just got up.
Of the session. So obviously things will still unfold, especially since the energy will continue working for the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I heard you say that. That's cool.
I'm curious if you have any, at this moment, notion or connection to what might have been moving out of your solar plexus or from the leg.
I'm not sure yet, but when the leg moved, even though the leg was what moved, I actually felt something releasing from my hip on the right side. And I know that there's a lot of, you know, I know that that's like a real popular storage place for a lot of energy. Yeah,
I like that phrasing. Popular storage place.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's true, right? Yeah, but I'm not really clear about what it was. But I know it started from like kind of sacral, hip, and then shot out through the leg, which was kind of cool to feel how it moved, because it was like very soft, like kind of bubbling, and then my leg almost like, you know, when they hit your knee at the doctor's to check that's how it like jolted up out of nowhere. Wow. Right? Or how I perceived it was jolting. And I think it physically like moved. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah. I'm really excited for dream space after this. My dreams have been super colorful and like really open since I got back from my dieta in Peru. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of processing in the dream space lately.
Oh, cool. And there was a Thursday night, Friday night. I'm seeing you on Saturday again.
Yeah.
I'll be here for a whole day with you, and you're leading something. And I'm so excited. So maybe I'll get to hear some about your dreams tonight and tomorrow night.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Something hit me when you were saying, right after you were talking about that hand, what you felt was a hand still on your solar. And there's this, one of the hand positions, the one where my hand is under your head, and then I put my hand on your solar plexus. Part of the intention of that hand position is to expand what you can hold.
Wow,
I'm
that's
wondering,
very cool.
and like, I mean, obviously I have no idea, but I'm wondering if something was like, we just got a little bit more to like open up there
Yeah.
at the end.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
That would be really cool.
I feel like I went to X-Men camp and got like the upgrades. You know, it's good.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's cool. Is there an X-Men camp somewhere? That would be amazing.
Right? Can we sign up?
Yeah,
Is there a waiting
go.
list? What's the application like? Yeah, totally.
Cool, fun. Any other thoughts about the inner healing before? I mean, we can talk about it anytime throughout, but
Yeah, I think I just felt. Yeah, I really liked the incantations you did at the top and like the calling in. Actually felt really, really beautiful and powerful. And I think as a receiver, when I was just kind of going into my own energy as you were doing that, like that in itself allowed me to kind of shift into a different state. You know, that in itself brought so much peacefulness. It's very powerful.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because during that time, one of the first things I do is post the archangels at the four corners of the room, and then Gabriel right in the middle to like hold the space for us. And I just notice over and over again that when I do that, a peace does come in the room. Like they're really there for us to hold the space. And like we're here, and we're gonna.
Yeah.
You need calm and protection. Here it is.
Yeah.
It feels really, really wonderful.
Yeah. So nice.
I was having this is a subtle shift, but I'm moving into a question about you. You ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Thanks for the heads up.
The transitions, I have a thing with transitions. Sometimes I'm like in something deep with someone, and maybe they're sharing about their day or something, and then they're like, "But how about you?" And I'm like, "I'm not done with you yet."
You're like,
like, what is happening?
You can't get off this bus.
Yeah. I kept having the question. I was so curious throughout that of how you have moved out of your religious trauma and what the process was for you to let go of that story and that indoctrination and to move into this. I know that there was a period of time where you were like had to be out of spirituality all the time, but like those 2 points at the either end, especially coming back in, I'm curious about to spirituality and being able to totally, I don't know if you've totally let go of it yet. I don't know where you are with that, but all those things I'm curious about.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I mentioned that there was a period of time where it was kind of like the dark ages. I couldn't say God, and I was really disconnected. But I started going out in nature more and just being in awe of the beauty and being present with nature was super helpful. And then my first kind of like bridge back in was when I got into Kundalini yoga. And in Kundalini yoga, there's a lot of like breathing and like twisting and stuff that kind of is awkward, like awkward in the way of like, you know, when you like rub your belly and like pat your head, it's challenging for the brain to do. But I was really suffering with some depression at that time, like really, really bad depression, coming out of, this is like 10 years, this was like right before I started my plant medicine journey and like came in all these gifts, right? So it was like over 10 years ago. And it was really bad depression. It was. I didn't have a suicide attempt, but it was suicidal depression at that time. It was very scary and life-threatening. So I found Kundalini yoga because they said it could rewire your brain chemistry. And what had caused the depression was I was in an abusive romantic relationship with a clinical narcissist. And something that happens in the narcissistic abuse cycle is a chemical imbalance can develop in the brain. So when you finally do get away from said narcissist, you experience something very similar and painful to withdraw. And that's why you think you'd feel better. You get rid of the toxic person in your life, but a lot of survivors of this psychological abuse actually feel worse and can have a suicidal bout after they leave. And so I was in that, and I was clinging to Kundalini yoga for my life, literally. I had to go every single day, and I there is a spirituality present in Kundalini yoga, but it's very like self-empowered. It's like the God source energy like inside of you, like connecting with that Kundalini, which is that creative power, meaning if I have creative power, then I am a creator. And like God was always taught to me like to be the creator, right? So I was like putting these things and I was like, well, I'm a creator, right? And I have this creative energy and we're working with it, and pulling it up through the spine and being able to open my own intuition center and these higher chakras. And I was feeling that happen physically in my body, and simultaneously my depression was getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And I decided to go to Bali, and that was kind of like the real kickstart right before the plant medicine. I go to Bali where it's amazing there. It's said that the karma is accelerated in Bali, good or bad. So if you're sick and you come to Bali and you're meant to get well, you'll get well. But if you're meant to pass, you might pass sooner. Or if your relationship is meant to be the relationship and you take it to Bali, you guys might accelerate. Or if it's not the one, like it might just crumble apart. And I really felt that acceleration because I was wounding this depression. And when I got to Bali, I was still kind of in the suicidal space. And the energy was moving. And I found myself like going to yoga every single day in Bali, eating these like juicy, like superfoods and being in nature. And I find myself going, I don't know, I just was going every day. I went to this temple there where they had the Balinese version of like a Shaolin monk. I don't know what their things were, but you will be super interested in this because they were doing energy healing there way before mine opened. And I thought it maybe was only for Balinese people because there was like this upper chamber of this really special temple called Temple of the Woman, where you have to crawl through a hole in the rock that looks like a yoni. Oh, wow. It's very small and you have to crouch, and then you come and it's like a womb in there, and they're chanting, and then you can come up to the monks, and one by one there's one monk in front of you and a monk behind you, and they start using this energy of their hands without touching you. There's no physical touch, but you feel this light kind of shoot through your head, and then they're pushing you back and forth, rocking you with their energy. So no one's touching you, but somehow you're swaying in between the two of them while this light thing is happening. And then the monks sat me down afterwards. You're lightheaded. They have to come sit you down. They give you rice. And he didn't have very much English. But he kept saying, you are good. And like, I took it to mean like, you're all good. Like, you're all good. You're good.
You're all good.
You're all good. It's all good. You know? But he just kept saying, you is good.
Oh, wow.
You know? And I was like, okay. And then we had a sunset planned that day. So when I was healing my depression, it was so important for me to see every single sunset. I had actually kind of a little bit of an unhealthy attachment to it at the time. It meant I made I made it another day, but I had to physically watch the sunset. And the unhealthy part was like if I got stuck in traffic or something happened, I started to have this anxiousness, like, oh my God, I'm going to miss the sunset, because it was really like an anchor point for me during this depression. But we found this special bay in Bali where there's this bay, and there's a small rock like formation out in the middle of this bay, like almost like a tiny island, but there's a keyhole, and at a certain time of year when the sun drops through the ocean, it'll shine right through this keyhole as it falls into the ocean, and it does this blast of light like onto the beach. And we happened to be there at that time, so it was like, not only is this a sunset, it was like a super special sunset at a special time of year in a special place of earth where the karma is like accelerated. But I find myself there somehow magically, although I had done very little research about this before. It's just, they were like, this is the sunset spot. And so I go to the sunset spot, and another thing I was doing at the time to regulate was like, I would, if I got like emotionally kind of like unregulated, I would sprint until there was no air left in my lungs. I think it was a way of like inducing emotional release, because then oftentimes I would like fall over and I would be able to cry. That happened at this beach, but it was really hilarious because it's a small bay with just all families who came out to watch the sunset. And I was emotionally triggered because we almost missed the sunset. I think it was part of what was going on. So I start sprinting, but there's not that far to go. So I'm just like running back and forth on this bay like this crazy person, you know, and they're like, there's nowhere to go, but she's running, you know, and everybody else is like drinking coconuts, like waiting for the sunset. It was hilarious. So I'm just doing my sprinting. And finally I get to the place of like physical exhaustion, and I fall over into the ocean. There's like these little rocks, and I just fall in the water and I start heaving. And I found this mantra fall out of my lips, and I said, thank you for my life. That was the mantra. And I looked up, and as I was saying thank you for my life, I was crying and over again saying thank you for my life, thank you for my life. The sun peered through that space in the rock, and I just bawling. It was inconceivable in that moment that I would ever contemplate ending the gift that is this life. And that moment for me was God, and was what God was and what God was about. And I just, that moment was so healing, and I knew that I had connected with something divine in that space, but that it was also, I connected with something inside of me. And that's a really interesting way to answer your question. But that was kind of my bridge back to my connection with God.
It's a beautiful story, first of all.
Thank you.
I got a little emotional.
I know, it's beautiful. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Listening to it.
Yeah.
Those moments in life are just so, I'm still now getting more emotional.
Yeah.
Are just so powerful and beautiful.
Yeah.
And when you say that you connected to God, but connected to something yourself, like that is what connecting with God is. It's connecting to something in yourself.
Yeah.
In the immensity of everything that's in the beauty and that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, beautiful thing to have happen.
Such a welcome home. Then I had pad thai on the beach after that. So it was a really productive day, like a really powerful day. Yeah. And then that was funny too, like I say now about the noodles, but like I was there with my best friend at the time, Soph, you know, and she's really a trooper because she was kind of by my side through all of this. I'm sure it was not an easy person to be in company with in this state, you know, and she had ordered the pad thai while I was doing my sprinting routine, and I came up and I sat next to her, you know, and I just have this plate of hot noodles, and we were watching the sunset, and there was just this moment of levity where we just kind of busted out laughing, you know? Like, there had been all this chaos getting there, and then the drama, and then I found God, and now we're just sitting eating hot noodles, and it was just hilarious, you know? Like, there was some, like, levity, which I think is important, too. I think...
Super.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about laughter in healing and in levity, and we come in thinking and assuming and experiencing so much pain and discomfort and crying when it comes to healing and when it comes to even getting there, that the laughter, that end of it is so important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that you had that.
Thank God.
Laughter.
Thank God. Yeah.
It's almost like that was ridiculous, but it happened, and it was so real, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And just how ridiculous it all is.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Holy cow, you got me.
Yeah.
You got me over here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anytime.
Wow. Great answer to my question. Yeah, that's how. So what I'm gathering is you just were listening, and you heard go to Bali, and you went. So you were just listening.
100%. Yeah. So many miracles in my life have happened because of that. I get this like unexplainable like inspiration or nudge. And that really was a huge thing at the time. I didn't have money, like, you know, and I was working from a laptop at some coffee shop with my 2 dogs when I got the ticket. And, you know, I had been kicking around in LA with this depression for a couple months, really just nursing it by clinging to this daily Kundalini class. But I think with the energy of LA and like the hecticness, it's like I was just kind of barely keeping my head above the water. I was treading water, but I wasn't swimming forward. And yeah, it was this like message that was like, go to Bali. And I was on my laptop and I pulled up flights and I booked a ticket on Hopper. This is cheap, you know? I was like, whatever. There's a 5-hour layover. I guess I'll sleep. So, like, you know, just like one of those patched together, like cheap tickets. But the moment I bought that ticket, and I had no other details of the trip planned, there just was a plane ticket. I walked out of that coffee shop. It was like I took a backpack off. Like, I felt lighter. I felt intuitively like everything's going to be okay. And that was the last time I was in a coffee shop until I went to Bali, because I realized that in Bali, the LA price of a latte and an avocado toast is like a 1-night housing with free breakfast in the morning in Bali.
Wow.
Yeah, so like that was part of the way how I figured it out. Like I buckled down. You know, the ticket was bought like I think 8 weeks out from the trip, and I just like buckled down. I like got something like slightly better than Folgers and started brewing it at home, and just started. It shifted the way that I slightly better. Sorry, Folgers, slightly better, because I couldn't, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like buckled down and like yeah, I just saved money to invest in my healing. It was huge. But yeah, you're right. That was just like an intuitive whisper. And I've gotten so many of those. You know, it was also, because I noticed you called in the angels for the healing session. At that time, I had read this book called, is it called Calling Your Guides, or like Talking to Your Guides? But it's about connecting with guardian angels. And I was scared because I'd never traveled alone. And as a single female traveler, there's all this like fear that's put out there. Oh, single female traveler, very dangerous. Like, you know, and even people in LA were saying that to me. Like, aren't you scared? And I did have fear. You know, when I really think about it, that was old indoctrination too for my religion. You know, like the woman should be with the man, and like they control you a lot with fear. Like, you know, it's not safe to be without the man, so you know, you get married young in the church and stay with your family, right? It's a way of controlling you. So there was a lot of fear. But I remember I had listened to this Calling in Your Guides, Talk to Your Guides book. And I learned about how to like call in the angels. And so I was practicing with that here in LA before I left. And then it got way less nuanced when I got to Bali. Like, I remember the first time at night, I was like walking alone, and I was like, instead of calling them all individually, I just started saying, angels all around me, angels all around me. And like, I would just, anytime I felt fear or got scared, I would just say, angels all around me, angels all around me. And I walked all around Bali, you know, saying that, and I was totally safe and protected. And then it was hilarious because I had this driver there, Wyan, and I would always ask Wyan, like every time we would go somewhere, like, oh, is it safe for me to be here? Is it safe? Is it safe? 2/3 of the way through the trip, he's like, explain to me the philosophy and like the belief system of Balinese people and their connection to God. And so he was like, Nicole, he's like, I is you, you is me. If I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. So you're safe here. Like everywhere you go, you're safe here. And I just was so moved by that. And I remember crying when he told me. It was such a peaceful thing. But he had to tell me, because I think I asked him every single time he let me out of the car. You know, like, is it safe? But yeah, between that, like, I landed in legitimately probably one of the safest places for a single female traveler, or any traveler.
Amazing.
You know, yeah.
That I is you, you is me, like what he offered you there, I can just when you said it to me, I could just see this piece of another thing that religion, and just not even religion, but society over here in general, is hammered in here, that we're so individual and we're so separate from each other. That cry that you had of hearing that was a little piece of that breaking off.
Falling off. Yeah, totally. Right? And now, I mean, that was 10 years ago. I fully believe and accept interconnectivity. You know, I'm creating a documentary series right now. It's called Trip to Oneness, right? Really inspired by that first trip, actually. Cool. Yeah, and I fully understand that like this illusion of separateness, you know? And when you live from that belief system, there's such an investment in like everyone else's wellness and okayness, and there's so much more care and compassion that can come through. And then it seems equally important to care and take care of yourself, because if you're connected to the whole, right? And then, for example, when I was in that suicidal state, then how heavy my contribution is in that state. So then how important it is, if I believe in supporting the collective, like to take care of my own emotional well-being in my own state. So it also that way of thinking kind of tied me to even more self-care. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Why did that like click differently in my body this time?
Yeah. I saw something happen.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep that in there.
Yeah.
Apparently something in here needed that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
That knocked the next question I had out of me.
Oh,
that's okay.
That could happen, yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Apparently, this is what I was saying to you before we started the second half of the podcast. I was saying how healing this podcast has been for me. Oh, I said that before the healing session.
Yeah.
How healing this is for me.
You mentioned
talking
that.
to people about their journeys is, and then hearing these beautiful stories and amazing experiences, and then things that they've picked up and learned on the way, and then like something just always seems to make it in. I'm like, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift this whole thing is.
It's a smart way to get the collective downloads, right?
Yeah.
You get like cliff notes from everyone that you sit with. It's pretty cool.
Which just reminded me of where I wanted to go. I had when I hear you talking about you listening and going and to a call to go somewhere, and then also about your experience opening up your energy healing that way, it just feels to me, I was talking with a friend named my friend Robin about this kind of thing, and it feels like it's a calling, like this is a calling, and I was like, when I was talking to her about it, because I was feeling like what's happening with me is a calling, and I keep saying the universe is like, try to say no.
Yeah.
Try to say no to this. And you can, but it'll keep going,
right.
batting you into it, like, because that's a calling.
That's a calling.
A calling is something that you can't really say no to.
Right.
That's just that's what Robin was like telling me. I don't think I really had that connected, but she told it to me, and I took it in. Wow. That you can't really say no to a calling. However, you do have to do work.
You have to show up for it, right?
You have to show up for it.
Yeah.
And it takes effort to meet that calling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had callings that show up kind of this in the what I call the echo chamber of the universe, where maybe I'm a little denser and need like heavier handed clues sometimes. I don't know, because sometimes the direction comes from everybody around me saying, you should do this, you should really do this. Like that happened and each thing's just been like kind of like a little stepping stool to get me to now, which I feel like I'm really living and working in my life's purpose. But before that, there was just like I was in the acting world, and there was this gentle whisper that was like, you should start cooking. And every party I went to and everyone I saw was like, when are you going to start cooking? Well, you should really start cooking. You should be a chef. Everywhere I went, all the time. Like, people that didn't even taste my food. I'm like, what?
Wow.
You know? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and then before I knew I was a hippie, people started being like, oh yeah, that hippie girl, and I'd be like, you me? Like, I didn't know. I had no idea, but they were like, they could see it. They're like, oh yeah, she's super spiritual hippie type. I was like, what? Like, I didn't know. Like, I had to get the memo externally. Yeah, and then the same with, like, people called me a healer before I started calling myself one, and then this new journey, how I'm stepping into the ayahuasca world and getting ready to help people in ceremony with that plant. A lot of people start coming out of the woodworks asking me, like, when are you gonna be serving? When are you gonna be holding ceremony? When are you, just asking for it. I'm just like, that's how the universe talks to me too. It's just like, it creates this echo chamber where I keep getting the nudges from all around me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah. It's helpful.
Yeah, this is really helpful.
Yeah. I think it knows. It's like, you really have to get her attention.
I was just going to say that. The universe knows how to work with each person.
Yeah. She doesn't need subtle clues or whispers. She needs direct messages. Bold.
A constant barrage.
Yeah. First 9, she's not even going to hear, just keep them coming. Yeah.
Speaking of your cooking, by the way, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Vegan chef.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Food. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Wild. I think this is like this moment here where I'm like, I don't want it to end necessarily.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to, but do want to know, is there a way that if someone would want to work with you, or work with you in a way of, anyway, whether work with you or come to you for energy healing or whatever you offer, is there a way that they can reach out to you? Or find you?
I think the best way is on Instagram. It's just my name, Nicole Derseweh, on Instagram, and people just direct message me there, and then we end up on WhatsApp and talk about all the possibilities. But that's the best way. And then whenever I have public offerings, I'll post them there too. If I do a breath work or sound bath workshop, I post it there. And sometimes those are kind of cool introductories for people to kind of get a feel, because it's such a personal thing, like who you work with as a healer, and sometimes those are really beautiful introductory moments, and then we can take deeper dives.
Do you do sound healing?
I do.
You do.
I do breath work and sound healing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but when I hold my own ceremonies, I always just bring in, like when you come on Saturday, there'll be a separate sound healer, because then I'll be focused mostly on the energy work and processing with people.
Right. Holding.
Yeah.
It's just one less thing to worry about when you're holding the actual.
The whole container. Yeah. But the sound healer that's coming, her and I do collabs. So when I do sound baths, it's us together anyway. So it's easy find to have her for ceremony, because we've already worked together so many times.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Looking forward to it. I am like, before we talked on the phone about all of this, about the ceremony this Saturday and about doing the podcast together, I was in deep in something, and it was like, it's been lasting a long time, and it was just so much to hold, and I was so ready for this journey and needing to move something, and 3 nights in a row you were in my dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, like you were already like, I knew that I was going to be doing this ceremony with you, but we hadn't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
And it was already like, your energy was like, okay, we're going to start working now.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. You're not the first person. So I think I do a lot of astral in the sleep space, because yeah, I'm definitely like making appearances. So I'm so happy that we're already softening and working. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I send astral self out. No problem. No problem.
I always wonder, whenever that happens, if the person knows. I had this experience on ayahuasca where I was doing root chakra work, and that's really hard work for me.
Yeah.
And I was calling in help from my friend Skylar, and she came. Like, her energy arrived, and it was powerful. And this is the first time I actually realized how powerful this woman is. She's amazing, and I always wonder if part of you is aware.
Yeah.
Like, if you are aware that your part of you is going out into someone's dream space.
I probably need external reflectors to like tell me, you know, like I don't know if I would know. In the dream space, I'm not as aware. I feel like I'm getting more aware though, because I'm starting to remember all of my dreams and stuff. But you know what's so interesting though? Like, I send my energy to people when I'm awake. You know, and I'm very aware, and they have similar experiences of like really feeling that presence. Also, I've done my energy healing sessions remotely, and people are able to really like feel the presence when I consciously send it out. So I'm sure it like completely makes sense to me that if I'm asleep and my subconscious has an understanding that I'm already working in healing capacity with certain people, that, you know, she would just multitask and like go out and then like, well, like of course she would, you know, because I'm doing it consciously when I'm awake sometimes. So yeah, maybe I'll get there. Well, I'll know when it's happening. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
Yeah, totally.
If that hits, let me know.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna visit you and then call you in the morning. Like, did you feel that? Because I know about it.
I had this. Here's another quick story. I had this on one of my early ayahuasca journeys. I have this friend, a dear friend that I love so much, who also works in Reiki, and she's in Indiana, and I was in New York City at the time. And I told her that I was doing a journey, and she goes, when are you starting the journey? I said, I'm starting at blah 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 time, 10 o'clock or whatever. And she goes, I'm gonna send you Reiki in the middle of your journey. I actually asked her if she would do it. And she's like, yeah, well, that would be amazing. I was like, I want to see what happens. And sure enough, at this moment during my journey, all of a sudden Shauna was there.
Wow.
And I was like, this is incredible. Shauna's right here, and I was receiving energy. And then something in me, I was like, send her. She's the one that needs healing right now. Send it to her.
Wow.
And I started sending it back to her. And the next day, and then like our connection got lost. But the next day, I called her up and I talked to her, and she said, Joel, the craziest thing happened. I was sending you energy, and I was really connected, and then I just felt it coming back at me, and I was like fighting it. I was like, no, this isn't for me. This is for Joel. This is for Joel. And like she was like trying to, and then I like lost the connection because I didn't understand what was happening.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's Joel's time.
So,
whoa.
Yeah, all that talk of astral stuff.
It's
What do you think of that?
It's amazing.
Okay. Well, this has been, unless anything else is in you that would like to come out.
I just feel so grateful. Thank you for having me. This is really beautiful.
Thank you for joining me.
Yes.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So, another beautiful thing about this is like the connection. I feel like I know you more now. Obviously. And like I feel more connected to you, and that is one of the best gifts of doing this. So I feel really grateful for that.
Yeah.
And it was a joy to have you, joy to do energy work on you, and to hear parts of your stories and your gifts, and beautiful. It's beautiful. So
thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And to all of you, I invite you to make a little room for healing in your life, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for making a little room for my podcast. I'd love to be a part of your journey too. Follow me on Instagram at A Little Room for Healing for news, updates, offerings, and connection. To book a session with me, go to www.alittleroomforhealing.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, follow the link at the bottom of the episode description. Have a beautiful day.